Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Boss Ladies Connect. I am so excited about today's guest. We have a special guest today. Anita is here. She's going to be sharing her story, her journey, and just talk a little bit more about what she's doing in the industry that she's in and why she loves it so much. But before we get started, I absolutely have to say the reason why she is a special guest is because she is my cousin, y'all. So
Yes,
help
she
me
is.
welcome, Anita to Boss Ladies Connect. I always love when I can have family members on the podcast and we're able to share of our experiences and journeys. And so I've already gave them your bio and your resume of the things that you've been doing. But if you could share, well, say hello and then share a little bit about yourself that maybe we don't know.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting, but I have to admit I'm just a little bit nervous. I guess one thing that you may not know is this is like the first time I've ever done a podcast. So I'm excited. My husband and I, years ago, we were asked to host like a TV show. Like the ministry that we were in, they would come on TV like at least every week. I don't remember if it was every day or so, but they had us to host it one time, and it was going to be on TV, and I was not as nervous then as I am now.
Really?
Yes, it was cool. It was cool.
Oh, that's an awesome fun fact. Me and Akita, my husband, we were on a news station talking about my book, and we fell in love with the when we were on the studio. We were like, this is something we could do this all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's cool. That was cool. That was a fun experience.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'll have to have you back on to talk a little bit more about that. That was like, not everybody experiences that, but I absolutely enjoyed it when I was able to be on the news. I had my 10 minutes of fame.
Right. That was your first 10 minutes. I'm sure you have more coming.
Yes, my first 10 minutes, I received it.
That's right.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with you is because you've been doing a lot of things in the real estate space, but and I love to highlight and spotlight women who are in real estate. There's just so many different avenues of it, but I love to find or talk about the story behind it. So like, why do you love real estate? What was that thing that started you into this journey of moving in this direction? And so I'd absolutely love for you to share.
Yeah, it's funny, when I graduated, and that's been some time, but it won't take me that long. When I graduated from college, so I came from, Maxon, North Carolina, small town, and I came to Raleigh. I went to school. I graduated from St. Augustine's College, and I got on that path quickly of, okay, I gotta do something with my life. And, I worked in retail, and then I ended up with a job as a corrections officer at the women's prison. And that's like, okay, I'm straight now. I'm gonna do this for 30 years and then I'm gonna retire. But it was quick that was like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna do this. But I was able to, get the promotions. I left there. I became a surveillance officer. I left there. I became a probation officer, So I moved up the ranks as high as I could until I either become a supervisor or this is it for me. And I was at the top of my pay grade, and it was like nothing. And I'm like, I wanted more. I just wanted more. And I knew that working for the government was just not going to be it. Like, I don't know that, like my grandmother who raised us, by the time I came along, she was at home. Like, she went to do work sometime, but I don't have a memory that she left the house every day going to work. And my grandfather, he had a store. I didn't realize until I was older that, he was an entrepreneur, right? He had his own business. So So I just
Listen,
started to want more.
I just have to say, yeah, I think about that too, because I'm like, I know I used to go in there trying to get that soda pop or that pop and that candy. I'm like, there
Yeah.
was a full, like an actual business happening on the
Mhm,
grounds.
mhm. Like for real, the vendors used to come and bring him supplies, and that didn't dawn on me as, this man is doing his own thing. But anyways, I'm here and I've got this job. I don't know kind of where I got that idea from, that, you get your state job and you work and you retire. It just wasn't for me. I thought I've got to do something. And now, like 12 years later, I'm married. I'm at the top of this thing and I'm not happy with it. And in my career as a probation officer, part of what I had to do was I just go and visit the people that I was supervising, right? So I'd have to get in my car and drive around North Carolina, mostly Wake County, right? So when I'm going to these people's houses, I'm passing these neighborhoods with these new homes. And I just, something about it I liked. So I'd go and visit the model home. And it was sort of, it was disappointing that when I would do that, I didn't seem welcomed, right? So I'm alone, I'm at work, and that was, one of the good things. I could just go in here, and every time I went in the house, the person on the other side of the door, one, didn't look like me, and it seemed like I was a waste of time, like, why are you even coming here? But if you want to look around, sure, go ahead. So, and I did, and I would often think, wow, I could do that. Like, I wonder how they did that. And so I started to research, real estate. And turns out my husband owns a barbershop downtown. He's been downtown for years. And one of his customers was the VP of sales in a new home in this industry, right? He was working for a builder, and he talked to me about, what it looked like. And I thought, okay, I can do this. Now, at the time, you didn't have to have a real estate license to do the job that I do. But I felt like I needed to do that because I want to know what I'm doing, right? I didn't know that. I really just didn't feel confident that I'd get the opportunity to do it if I didn't have something to offer. So while I was working as a probation officer, I went to school, got my license to be a real estate agent. I did it at night. Like, the minute you join the class, everybody tells you, I've taken the test 8 times, or you're not going to pass. It's going to be so tough. And I'm like, okay, God, that ain't me. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. And it was so consistent. Don't feel bad if you don't pass, okay, no problem. I went to school, I took the class, I committed to the process, I passed the class on my first try, and I got my license.
Wow. You
Yes.
know what? I was just talking to one of my friends who just got her license, and she had a similar story. I think it was 10 years ago, maybe. She was going to school to get her real estate license. And I think passed that first test and was scheduled to take like the state test. And but people kept telling her, she was like, especially older people, they were like, oh girl, you're not gonna pass it. It's so hard. It's so hard. I couldn't pass it. It took forever. And she said it made her afraid. And so she just didn't even try. She didn't even try. And so now here she is 10 years later. And she got her license last month.
Wow. Well, yay, she got them.
On the first time.
Wow. Yeah, see? And back then we're smarter. Like, you're smarter, younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for her. I don't know. I was at a place where you couldn't just tell me no. When people told me no, then I knew you need to mark them out. Just don't listen to him. And I just prepared I'm going to do this. Like, okay, sorry, this is your 8th time. Like, Letitia, every day someone was telling you, man, this is my 4th time. I think I'm gonna have to do it again. It's amazing how so many people can be so negative in that one class. But I did it. And so after having, gotten my license, I went to the state board. I finished the state board. And when I finished the test, I said, okay, I had a little extra time. I said, let me start over. And I went back to the beginning. I went back to the beginning, started reading questions. And by the time I got to the 5th question, I'd already changed 3 answers. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this. And I don't know if it's the same now, right? But you had to press enter and it says pass or fail. And so I just did it and I passed. So I was thrilled. And I just went back to work and I continued to work. And my husband's friend, his name is Jesse Odoms, he gave me the opportunity to sit on site at one of his neighborhoods. It was like a closeout neighborhood. You know, when builders build these new neighborhoods and, you know, we sell 200 homes and we have like maybe 3 left, most times they'll give it to a real estate agent to list. But if you're like me and anxious to get this opportunity, he'll let you go sit on site. And so that's what I did. And I met a few people and I'm thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about, but this seems cool. This seems cool. And, you know, and now it's history. After I did that, I said, I'm going to find a job doing this work. And I came to my office and I Googled new home builders in this area. And everything came up. You know, I say Google because Google's been around like 20 years now, I think. I'm sure that's what I did. So I Googled it, right? And this list comes up. So I went to all their websites. And if they were hiring, I did an application. And Beezer Homes was the first new home builder that I worked for. And it was funny. I had done an application. I spoke to the sales manager and we were gonna do it. We talked about setting up an interview and we talked a couple of days and he told me to call him back and I did and I couldn't get him. And then I found out that he had been fired, that the company was going through a restructuring of sorts because they do that a lot in new homes. He'd been fired, right? But then they told me when I called that the lady taking his place, they told me her name, and they said I could leave a message for her to call me back. So when I got her voicemail, when I left my message, I said to her, her name is Allison. I said, hi, Allison, this is Annita Bowden. I said, you don't know me. I said, but I'm your next multi-million-dollar producer. I said, and you don't even have time to talk to me. I said, so when you get a chance, call me.
Wait.
And she did.
Wait, okay, so I want to go back because there was something you said before you said that multi-million-dollar producer, which we're going to talk about, but you said that you didn't know what you were talking about, but you were like, I like this. And I think that's so interesting because I think a lot of us deal with imposter syndrome, especially when we're starting, well, at many different stages, but when we're starting out and we don't really know, but we know that there's something. I'm just wondering, what do you think it was about you that you were able to move past that feeling of like, you don't really know what you're doing, so you probably need to sit down. Like,
right. You probably should just go back to being a probation officer.
Right.
What I know is if you teach me how, I'll do it, right? What I knew is I may not know what I'm talking about now. You know what I think it was? Well, because I knew I could learn it, right? But I was never afraid of saying, I don't know. So if somebody came and asked me a question, listen, I don't know. However, if you give me your name and your number, I will find out and I will call you. And I think that made it easier to not know and still want to do it. Because I'm thinking for sure, I mean, just like when I had a job in college at Bojangles, y'all can show me how to do this, right? So if you show me how to do it, I know I could do it. And so I think it was just knowing that they have to train you, they have to show you how to do it. There was no reason to say no. I wouldn't quit. If I got the job, I would do it.
You know what? I love that. And I hear like, because I'm speaking to myself too, because I go through the same thing. I'm like, I don't know that answer. But it's pride. Because you said not even, you weren't afraid to be like, I really don't, I don't know, but I can find out, and I think I'll speak for myself. Sometimes for me, it is that desire to want to know everything, to want it to be perfect. But then that's also kind of like wrapped up a little bit in pride and not really being able to be like, well, I don't have the answer, And so I love that. And so you called her and told her that you were going to be her top $1 million. Did I say it right? Top $1 million.
No, I said the next multi-million-dollar producer, and
Yes.
you're not even there. And she called me back. She called me back. She called me back, and I had already talked to, Jesse, our friend, and he'd given me, pointers and things. And she set up an interview. We interviewed. She was very kind. I took note of the gum that she was chewing. And then that day when I left, I went to the store, got a pack of gum, I got a thank you card. I did all the right things. But I just was ready. I was tired. Like, I wanted more. And they couldn't tell me no. Like, I trust God. I did all the affirmations. This is for me. And I was excited. I was excited at the possibility. So I think it was hard to let myself think you can't do it. They're gonna say okay, and they did. So I don't know what it was. I was glad though.
I love
I was
that.
glad.
I love that, but I think you've given some even practical tips. So you said that you did your affirmations and you paid attention like to what was happening when you were in that interview. So you paid attention to like what she was doing. I thought you was about to say you went and bought some gum so you could chew the gum because you was about to be.
No.
But still, that stuff is important.
Right.
You went the extra mile, and that is just super, super encouraging. And what I have learned as I have been in the entrepreneur space is that mindset is everything. Mindset is everything.
Totally.
And like, you got to have it right up here before you can really achieve anything. And like, that's the biggest battle.
Yeah.
And doing stuff afraid. And so I've kind of learned to, like, that is so important that I have to take that time every morning to make sure that this is
right
together before I get started. Because you're going to get a lot of no's in this, in life, but in this business.
In life and in this business. Right. Yeah.
So what happened after that? So she gave you the job, and then.
So, it's funny because they did give me a job, and then it became, okay, wow, they gave me this job, but now I got a husband at home. And the thing about this job is they don't pay you unless you sell a house, right? So I've never sold a house before. And I want to get this job. Now I have it, but now there's a thing of, well, what if I don't sell a house? And, what does that look like and how long is it going to take? So I had to now have this conversation with my husband. Of course, he knew the path I was on. He was very supportive. And now that I have the opportunity, it's like, okay, babe, like for real, they offered me a job. I can start this date, and they're going to give me, I think they still do the same thing now. And I started this back in like 2000. And they, at that time, even till today, they will give you $3,000 a month until you have a house that can close, right? Well, they really do it for 2 to 3 months, depending on the builder. And so it's like, okay, babe, they said, okay, it's up to you though, because I'm not gonna leave a job and not have any resources and bring that strain to you. I just didn't want to do that. But he was like, please go for it. I got this. Like, and it's like, okay, yay. I've not regretted it a day since. So, and I went to work. I loved it, and I still do it today.
This is encouraging. I'm inspired. So how long did it take between you starting to work and you actually closing on a house?
Mm-hmm. So when they offered me the job, she was very honest with me, and she said to me, we have a neighborhood in Fuquay Marina. It's not done well. We don't know why. Nothing has sold in like 9 months. If you want this job, you can have that neighborhood. Okay, where do I sign? Like, I was crazy enough I didn't know what that meant. My husband said, okay, let's go. And it's so, because I really believe that we have the life that we create. Like, I've always believed that. And I just was like, okay. And when I went to that neighborhood, of course, she told me where it was, and I was allowed to go there before saying, okay, yes, I want it. But I didn't, I'm going. I went to the neighborhood as a show of faith, to her. I'm going to do this. But when I went to that neighborhood, I just began to talk to God about all the people that were coming to see me, all the houses that I was selling. Didn't know how to do any of it, but I knew those are things that I needed to do. And so that's what I did. I rode through the neighborhood and I just began to talk to my customers and thank God that it was going to happen. She said, okay. I went to the neighborhood. My first weekend at work, I had 2 couples in to buy houses. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I know a neighborhood that you tell me nobody has been in this long. And the first weekend I got 2 sales. And of course I had to wait for them to close, which worked out. They were going to give me $3,000 for like 2 months, might have been 3, but 2. And they had to build the house. And it's always taken about 4 months for the house to build. So maybe there was like a month of lapse. But then after that, 2 months later, I had closings, and that continues, right? After you sold the first 2, it's easier. After I did that, it's been great.
Listen, it was almost like God was waiting for you to come into that neighborhood to start populating that space. Come on, Jesus.
Right. I love it. I love it. It was great. It was amazing. And I'll always be partial to Beezer Homes. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It was fun. I love it.
I love that. That's so encouraging. I mean, to me on so many levels. I'm like, I should have had this conversation with you. But for like divine appointments, like, and just walk and stepping out in faith. And then like you did so many things, like you declared and decreed the thing when you were there praying and speaking over it and walking in belief as if it already happened. Yeah. And then you just following suit with it. And I feel like that is like the hardest thing, like faith, that's what faith is about. And it can get so difficult because of what we see, as opposed to what we know or what we're supposed to believe.
Mm-hmm. Tisha, I think, I don't know. I think for me, like, I don't know the one thing I know about my life, I think the one consistent I have is I've always been a pretender. Like I had a great childhood. I wasn't abused I had a beautiful, loving family, and they gave me what they knew to give me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it was my grandmother was later in years before I began to hear her say she loved me. But I knew they did. You know what I'm saying? I know, but I think somewhere I've always had this crazy imagination. And I was never afraid to use that. I do that today. I think doing that for me makes faith easy. It makes my walk of attaining things that I want easy, because I really believe that anything that's going on in my life, I allow that. I create that. So I focus on things in my life that I want. I don't let stuff bombard me that doesn't support my joy, doesn't support the things that I want. Like some people think it's a little bit extra, but like, I don't want to listen to the news because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know that somebody got killed. I don't want to know there was a shooting in the mall. Why? Because that's not really, it's not my business at all. And just because it's on TV now it becomes my news. So it's easy for me. I mean, I love listening to audiobooks now. Of course, I didn't have that when I was younger, but I would always just pretend. I would lose myself in the space I wanted for my life. And that's faith to me. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going around telling people, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's not what's happening. But for myself, I just found sanctity and joy in knowing this is what I'm going to do. Right? Doesn't mean I'm not going to go through stuff that life isn't going to give me lemons sometimes, but I think I learned early to just not focus on things that I don't want. Like, I really think it's a choice.
That is so good. My girlfriend, I'm about to fall off the chair. When this airs, I'm gonna be sending it to her because she was just talking about how imagination, how important imagination is in the with the concept of faith and being able to visualize a thing. And so and we're just like discovering this because you're kind of taught like daydreaming is for like
Right.
children, and you grown now, stop daydreaming, you got to
Right.
focus on the
Because
facts
work.
and
Yes.
and on those things. But I can't, I think I can't remember the scripture, but somewhere in the Bible it talks about how God framed the earth or someone
The worlds.
in his image, right? And so she was talking about how the framing of that means that there was like a picture, like a visualization that he had. And so how important it is for us to visualize these things. And I think I'm just now really getting to the space of visualize, like understanding that power of visualization, because I remember in harder times of my journey, especially like my entrepreneur journey, when you do not see what you planned to happen, it being really, really like just feeling really hard. But it was because I was missing the whole piece of like my mindset, of imagining, of affirming certain things, and then the things that I'm affirming, actually visualizing that stuff. But like once I started doing that, it made the bumps in the roads easy. Like it's still good because I'm gonna get X, Y, and Z. And my mind is like so convinced of that these things can be happening in the natural, but it's just like, okay, but what we're doing
Right.
is, and where I'm going is, and so I wish I would have learned that a long time ago. So those listening today, this is like a gem. Um, so I want to ask you, as a part of this journey, we've talked about how there are challenges, there are ups and downs. What was one of the challenges that maybe you've experienced during this process? And how did you overcome that?
So I think I guess one of the biggest challenges I think would be like in 2007, 2006, when the market kind of imploded. Okay, the balloon burst, and because nobody's buying houses right now, and that's what I do. So if I don't sell a house, I don't get paid. They were laying us off. Um, and then I did what I need to do, right? Because one of my things is I never wanted to be a burden or a source of stress for my husband, though he would never say that. But it takes like common sense. Bills got to be paid, food's got to be prepared, and if I'm not helping with that, then that's an added weight, and I never wanted to be that. So, I found a job. There was a time where I took a job as I went back to work for the state, just brief, because I can't do nothing, right? Nobody's buying houses. I need to find something to do. And I found something to do, and this is not going to last. So I'm going to need to get back to what I want to do, because I was just not happy there. That was a point of I needed to do something. I want to, contribute. I'm going to go do this. But I always knew I would come back. So I think in that moment there was shock and like disbelief and, oh God, what am I going to do? And I think I got away from what I knew, and I started to look at my circumstances. And after doing that for a little while, it's like, okay, this is not me. Like, get yourself together. Trust God. Do what you've always done. And I think maybe that was like a year. And even in that time, I wasn't, I don't say I was stressed or anything like that. I just got off course. I think I just got off course. And then I just began to tell myself the things that I've always known. And I just came right back to what I knew. People are buying houses. So instead of saying, well, they're not buying houses. Yeah, well, they are. right? They really are. They're just not buying 20 a month. Now they're probably doing like 4 or 5. So now you just got to get yourself back in the right space and you'll get your share of that. So I just think for a while, I got away from what I knew. And to come back, I just refocused and started to put those things that I know works for me back in place. Instead of saying what's not happening, I begin to say what is happening. It's like they say, I'm not sure who it was, but I think maybe Mother Teresa was like, you can't have an anti-war rally. You have to have a pro-peace rally. You can't, the thing that you fight against is the thing you create. Whether you believe it or not, you're creating it, because you can't say, like I maybe shouldn't say, I may not should say, but in church they like to teach us. Some churches they'll tell us that we want to bind the enemy. No, I'm gonna leave him alone. I'm gonna go pull for the things. I'm gonna loose the power of God, right? I'm not gonna give my attention to those things that I don't want, because if you give your attention to it, that's what you're growing in your life. And that's what I did in that moment, because it was kind of like in real estate school, everybody's saying you're not going to pass, you're going to do it a few times. But when the market crashed, everybody was saying, oh, wow, we're going to get laid off and nobody's going to buy houses and we're going to have to do. And I bought into that for a minute. And then okay, God, forgive me. And I went back to the place where I know he is. And here I am.
I love that. Yes, I love that. I think there has been many of times I'm like, oh girl, you're gonna go to Target.
Right. So I'm not about that, but
I'm not, yeah, because I'm like, this don't make no sense, but then it's like, now you would not even be a good employee at this point. Like they yeah.
We could be tapping you on the shoulder, be like,
yeah,
it's okay.
Like, please stop telling people where they can go and do stuff better and how they should.
Right,
So
right.
I had to come like to a place where I think also like not looking back on stuff, and just being okay with what was. So like, even you were doing 20 sales a month,
Yeah,
and
yes.
now it doesn't look like that right now. And then just being okay with, okay, well, this is the present, but we're going to be focusing on going forward, instead of like always looking back. But I used to be able to do this, I used to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I love that. So I know that at one point you had your own company.
So new homes is fun. It's lucrative. It's great, right? There's a lot to like. It's work, but I love it. Like, I wouldn't trade. If I got to work for someone, this is what I'm going to do. But the time is a lot, right? The time that we have to give is a lot. And I was younger. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. And I needed a break. I just wanted a break. But when I took that break, I knew I wanted to do real estate, right? And this is what I'm going to do. So let's find a way that I could do it a little bit and not have to use the time that I got to go to work 10 hours a day. And the days that you're off, you're still working because they got questions or you need, So I decided that when I left, I would just get my own firm, because I'm not too good at working for people. Like, I don't want to do it. Not that way. Like the job that I have, though I have an employer, we spend the majority of our time alone. So it's great. It's not, I don't want to go sit in a room full of people or go in your, I don't want to do that. So I took the steps to get my own license, because I've done it long and I know what to do. General brokerage is a little different than new home sales. So when I decided to do my own firm and I just took a step back from new homes, I went to work. I joined the Keller Williams team because I wanted to make sure I was aware of, the differences, because I didn't want to get out there and get myself in a mess. And so I went, and they have a really good training, or they did at that time. And so I went through that for about a year, and then I left and, hung my license in my own space, so that I could do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, and still, Now, I will say that working for yourself, it can be tough. it can be tough because, in my case, I was trying to take a break. So waking up at 12 and, what I'm saying, staying up to 3 o'clock in the morning because
He
you
was
want to
on
watch TV.
he was on vacation
I was
work.
on vacation. I was on vacation work. Right. That's what it was. I didn't know. I'm like, okay, babe, I'm gonna keep working, but I'm gonna just work for myself. But babe coming home like, well, you ain't cooked because you've been here all day. Like, so I think that was challenging because I really enjoyed vacation work. And I had to talk to myself, okay, what you gonna do now? Certainly you can do this, but you cannot do it too. You can just be home. I was semi-retired, and I eventually, was like, okay, come on, because I knew I could do it. I just was vacation work. I didn't want to do it, so I had to really, okay, girl, get yourself together, and I had to go. I had to follow the path. I had to make my list. I'm going to call this many people every day and do the work. I had to just make myself do the work, right? For me, it was a little easier because I had a farm. I've been selling new homes for years. So I have a ton of people I can reach out to that knew me because I sold them their house. I just wasn't reaching out to them. I just was like, it's vacation. I'm not really working. But eventually I got it, and I started to make the calls, and but that was tough because it's so easy to just not do anything. And then your savings start changing because you're not working.
Then when the money stopped coming, you be like, "Ooh,
okay,
I need to do something."
Right. You can't ask. I ain't gonna ask babe for nothing because I had it, but okay, so go sell a house. So then I got disciplined. I had to I just followed the path. After a while, I thought, because I did that for 3 years. I mean, and I did get back to work, but the first year was fun. I just was relaxing. I just relaxed, but I got back to work, and so I don't say lightly, if you want to do real estate. I always say to people, if you want to work in real estate, if you can do on-site, it's the best. But I understand it's not that easy to get the job. This is a cliquish industry. There's more of us, and I mean that people that look like us. There are more opportunities for us now, but it's not that easy to get into this work. So the other option is general brokerage, and it can be very good, but you have to be disciplined. You have to know the path, and you have to be disciplined. It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely. I want to ask you about the power of real estate. So I feel like I didn't really, my mindset around real estate up until like recently, past couple of years maybe, was get a house and you have arrived. Like you've gotten the house, you have arrived, and make sure that you make those payments every month, and then 30 days, 30 years, you won't have to make them.
Right.
And I never really, I wasn't taught, and I want to say I wasn't taught. Like I had heard, I actually had Robert Kiyosaki's whole thing.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, and I got a little bit encouraged, but I don't think there wasn't a lot of people my age, my race, working in that space, and so I think for me, I didn't really understand the power of real estate and the power of equity and the power of all those things. Was there a point in your journey that you really began to understand, like, exactly, because you also hinted to the fact that it's a difficult industry to get into, which it is, and I feel like, especially in our communities, there's not a lot of knowledge, information, even though the internet is accessible. But if you don't know what to search for, then, you're not going to know what you should be looking for. But was there a point a point in the journey where you begin to understand that this is like a wealth builder outside of commission, or maybe it was a commission that, did that for you?
Yeah, so I think it was a little of both for me. It was kind of, early to midway that I realized, wow, this is really it, right? Like, because so what happens on these, we have sales teams, right? My coworkers, everybody's working in their neighborhood and everybody's making money and doing whatever they do. And I begin to see how a lot of my colleagues, because there's only like one other one on the team that looked like me, and then whenever other places I would see myself was like in the office doing, the other minuscule type work. But it was interesting that, they were buying homes not to live in. Wow, I should check that out. Like, you know what I'm saying? No, for real. Because Tisha, like, how there's not a lot of people that look like us, and there's not a lot of knowledge. But even today, and that's still the same. Like, it saddens me, still the same. And the unfortunate is, like, I'm all about responsibility. And I think, unfortunately, we're hard to talk to, right? We are, I don't even want to, it's such a cliche, but there's some truth in it. We are our own worst enemy. I take accountability for me, right? I cannot make excuses for what's happened or not happening in my life. And like, when I'm at work, a couple comes in my office, and the interaction that I have when that couple looks like me is very different than when they don't. And I don't know. I don't know. I could just say, I don't know why we're so guarded. I don't know what we're afraid of. And it makes it hard. Like, I can't help you if you don't let me. Like, we're so afraid of, I don't know what we're afraid of. I don't know. When people come in my office, there's stuff I'm going to ask you. Like, I'm not going to ask you how much money you make, or I don't need to know that. But when I ask you if you talk to Tisha at Crown Mortgage about what you can afford and what that looks like and where you go from there, you got to be able to tell me the truth. But we don't want to do that. So it's hard for me if I can't get you past buying and what it takes to buy a house for yourself. I certainly can't get you to the place where now you can, let's pull that equity out and buy another house and trust that somebody's going to come live in it and pay that for you. And then now we can do that again, right? I can't get you there if I can't even get you to talk to me about just your life. And it's us. We just don't, I can't, I was never a slave. Thank you, God. I know it's real. I know it is real. It was terrible. But what I also feel like I know is that the people, our ancestors who went through that, they don't want to hear us complain about what they went through. We didn't go through it. We have some of what they suffered for. And I feel like, we don't take advantage of the opportunities that we have. We're more comfortable saying, well, this is what happened, and using an excuse as to why I can't. So I saw it early. I still see it. When I feel like there's an opportunity to share, I do it. I encourage, because there are some things stacked against us. There are. But if you know that you got stuff in your credit, it's easier than you think to fix. It's easier. You're gonna have to pay the bill. But let's just do it. Let's just do that, right? Because they might not be buying Tim's no more, because that's back in the day. But we do what we want to do.
Right.
We spend money where we want to spend it, when we want to spend it, and how we want to spend it. If you got a $650 doctor bill that somebody already told you that, that doesn't matter. No, it matters. They do look at that, right? And when you try to tell them about resources or programs, or we just don't want to do it. And I don't know what I can do if you're not willing. I don't know.
There's definitely a fear factor, and then there's also this thing where even sometimes, I'm not gonna say everyone, but some people who have actually achieved or have gotten the knowledge and understand,
That's true.
it's almost like, well, you gotta go figure it out. Like,
Right.
I'm not
Right.
going to share
That's true.
the information with you. I'm not going to share the knowledge with you, because like you might take something from me,
Yeah.
or I don't know where that whole mindset or mentality comes from, but I know something that, me and my husband have like agreed upon, that, we want to be a part of our legacy, is that, we want our kids to be able to benefit from our ceiling
Mhm.
and not
Mhm.
from our floor, and like have to start all over again
Right.
from the
Mhm.
bottom. Um, and so that requires us, and we haven't done this the whole time. We was busy just
Mhm.
raising them, what I mean?
Right.
But
Right.
that requires us to take on some responsibility of educating them about credit, about certain things, about real estate, so that when we are gone and
Mhm.
whatever we've left, you actually know how to execute it, or you know how to let that ceiling take you to the next
Right.
level. And so I
Right.
just feel like other cultures do
Mhm.
that for each other. They leave a ceiling for other
Mhm.
people for their the next generation to build
Mhm.
from. And then it just keeps going. But I feel like we just keep starting from the bottom. And
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it is sad, and it's really sad. It's really sad, and we can't. And you're right. Part of it is we're afraid. You know, we don't know. But we have to become a little more trusting, and we have to be willing to share, because you're right. When some of us think we've arrived, now everybody else is beneath you. And so, yeah, there's that too. But like, there's so much, there's so much more that we can do. And it is easier now than I think, than it's ever been. And you just have to, you know, if, here's, I do believe though, if that's something that you desire, then believe God, it'll come to you, right? You'll meet the right people that will tell you the right things, and you'll make those steps and create that for your, because now, like any of us, anybody that owns a house now that they've had for more than a year, they're sitting on equity, that this is your opportunity to do that. Now is your opportunity to make something happen. But you can't be frivolous and all that kind of stuff. You got to be smart. And I like to think if you bought a house, then you pretty much are. You've gotten the basis, but you're right. You need the knowledge.
yeah,
You need the
yeah,
knowledge.
yeah, I definitely. And that's one of the reasons why, as a part of my platform, I wanted to be a teaching space. And so I know that the first time you hear the video, you probably won't get it the same time. And so I know it's a consistent thing, and the home buying seminars and all those different things. But at least the information that I have, I'm sharing with you. Now,
Right.
what you choose to do with it
Mhm.
is really ultimately on you, but I'm always going to, to share of that information. So there was something else that you said. I'm trying to remember what I wanted to say about it, but it'll come back to me. No, I think that is really, really good. And I can go on and on about building generational wealth
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
our families. And I say for me, I always teetered with like, oh, we should probably get some real estate, or, oh, we should probably, do this. But then there was always that allure of, well, I'm gonna take all my equity and get a car.
Yeah.
There is some discipline, right, that is
We
required.
gotta
There is a focus on the long
Yeah.
term, like not always looking at the short term things, and looking at like
Yeah.
long term, and being willing to make. That's another thing. Like, how many people are willing to make the sacrifices and be disciplined to what is the saying? To not have now so that you can have later.
Later. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you just it's like what's important to you. We have to What's important to you. And what's important to you. Because I just, like, I think I'm, what is it? My husband and I like to say, I'm living in the second quarter now. Like, I'm like 4 minutes into the third quarter, and I see things different. I get it. And so that I'm gracious to younger people who don't know or seem that, you can't tell them what they need to be doing. But I feel like, once you realize what is it you want, what's important, because social media is a lot. I don't, I'm not social media is a lot. And hey, it can be beneficial. It's, but I think the minute that you start to govern your life by what's there and what that looks like, and you compare yourself, that you're headed the wrong way. So yeah, when if I want to be Insta famous or that stuff, then I do think it's important to have, the latest jewelry and the nicest car and the pretty clothes and all that stuff. But then when you get that, okay, what do you have, right? And the way I feel, my joy is my most important thing, right? So would I feel a little bit happier if I drove a new Lincoln Aviator? Yeah, I just don't want to spend the money for that. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's going to feel just like that Explorer. It's the same thing, right? But that took me making a choice that's disciplined. I don't need that. I'd rather fly to Bali in first class than to drive an Aviator. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what you want. You can achieve anything you want in your life. You just have to tell yourself you can and stop talking about why you can't. And I think if we start, for me, it had to be the little things. It was simple. From my little childhood, I could just pretend that it's not what I don't like, it's what I like. It's not that I got to stay outside in the mud till mama say come in our house. I didn't want to go. I was lazy. I was a lazy child. I didn't want to be outside. I want to sit in the air conditioning, but you couldn't do that. Well, I'm gonna pretend that I'm out here in the air conditioning. So everything was always good. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta realize what's important and be honest that having this Louis Vuitton, or if I save, I might could buy a house. You know what I'm saying? We just gotta, I don't know. We're just not, I don't know. I just, every day I see us and I want so much more for us. It's not changing, right? It's gonna be, if we think it's hard now, it's gonna get worse, So at some point, we've got to dial in and just make a different choice, make a better choice. That's it. I could go for days.
No, I love it. What they say, yesterday's dollar is not today's dollar. So you need to just do it. But yeah, I love this. This was really, really, really good. I want to give you the opportunity before we go to, I guess, give, maybe one piece of advice or one thing that you've learned throughout this journey that you want to share with someone else. It could be another realtor or another entrepreneur or just a woman in general. Yeah, anything that you want to leave us with before we go?
I guess that I would say, certainly if somebody wants to do this work, don't tell yourself you can't, right? I think you get this opportunity by believing that it's there for you, right? I think it is difficult. It can be difficult to get in, but as I say that, I just did it. I made some calls and I believe God, and it happens, right? So it's not impossible. I think more general for me is, if I had to give advice to people, it's really to believe in, the Bible tells us, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Like the Bible says, if you ask, it's given. If you knock, it's open. If you seek, you'll find. Like, those things are so common that we lose sight of what it really means. And for me, it really does mean I start my day when I awake, I close my eyes again and I begin to I manifest joy. I tell myself the things that I'm so happy about in my life. It doesn't matter if I had an argument with my husband the night before. It doesn't matter if, I had a closing that didn't take place. I tell myself the things that I'm so happy about. And I want to get myself in that space so that as I move through the day, that's what's going to happen for me. Good is going to come. Why? Because I'm not focused on negativity. I really believe if you write, have a gratitude journal or know the things that you want and just find joy all the time, that is what comes, right? You get, the more you do, the more you create. If you're always negative, the hypochondriac that says people who are sick all the time, it's not a mistake. It's because you always find a reason for something to be wrong. And that's what you're going to continue to have. Versus if you always find a reason for something to be right, that is what you can have. So I will share one story and then I'm done. So here's, so Clarina, my aunt, you're one of you, Daphne, Clarina, twins. Yes, because y'all the same place, but you twins, right? But she was like my mentor in a way. Like I always looked up to her. When I was younger, she had the life that I wanted to emulate, right? She was happy. She loved God. I wanted that. And she helped me to begin to see how you have what you say. And there's this teaching I would listen to, and they would say, like, you gotta be in a space that you just get happy, like just that simple, just be happy. And it's easy to say, well, okay, say like I want a chocolate milk, but I don't have money to buy it. So I'm gonna think about chocolate milk, and somebody's gonna bring me chocolate milk. And it's easy to say, well, that's not true. That's not how life works. Well, try it and see, right? That's what the teacher would say, try it and see. So a couple of years ago, I used to, and I still do sometimes, I volunteer to work the polls for people vote, right? So a few years ago, I worked an election. It wasn't like a major election. It was like the whole day, only 200 something people came. It's just like for city council, whatever. So I was there. So when you go do those things, you spend the day, you arrive at like 6:30 in the morning and you don't leave till like at 7:30, almost 8 o'clock at night. You can't use your phone. You can't talk to your family. You can't do anything. You just sit in a room with a bunch of strangers that now become your friends. So we're spending the day there and I'm listening to this teaching and I'm trying to figure out, okay, can I really have what I think about? Can I really create stuff in my life? And I spent the day there and I began to think about, wow, I would love to have lasagna when I get home, and my husband makes the best lemonade. I wish he would do that. And I began to sit in that space because nobody's coming to vote. So I'm sitting there and I am literally excited about when I get home, I'm going to have lasagna and I'm gonna have a nice tall glass of lemonade. Now my husband knows nothing about this. I don't even know if he's gonna cook. But when I got home, my husband made lasagna and lemonade. And it's like, oh my God. And it was so simple. It was so simple, Tish, but it worked. And then it was like, okay, you can't stop me now. It's simple. And I had to start, I would say to anybody, just try it. Certainly don't start with a lottery win of $1 million. Start with some little stuff that you can handle, right? And watch God move. Just trust God, and you can do and achieve and be and do or have anything you want for your life. That's what I would say. It's not hard. It's as hard as we make it. Don't say it's hard. Say it's easy. Let's just do different. Let's think different. Create different. It's hard because you create that. Say it's easy. Say you have the answers and trust God and just get happy about your life. Okay, I'm done.
That was so good. It's talking about the power. I was reading this book, Charles Capps, God's Creative Power, and just the power of your words. Like you literally speak forth the things that you're going to experience. You manifest those things by the stuff that you're saying. So that was so good. And shout out to Aunt Chlorina, because I wrote about her in my book. I could, when I was little, I thought she was an angel. Okay.
I don't know why, because she was
glowing, and I remember she had like all white on, a white dress, and I was like,
yeah,
this is an
love
angel.
love her. She's a sweetheart.
But thank you so much for being on Boss Ladies Connect. This has been so good. So many different ways to dissect this information that you share with us today, and I can't wait for it to release. And so
Thank you. Thank you. Yay.